through the other part of assemblers, where we will learn about the other steps in design specification, and we will learn the design of a two-pass assembler using the data structures and algorithms, right? So to do a quick recap, we know that the functions of an assembler can be broken down into two. The first one is to generate instructions, and the second one is to process the pseudo ops. To generate the instructions, first the mnemonics in the operation fields are evaluated to produce the equivalent machine code, and then the subfields are evaluated to find the symbolic values. The literals are to be processed, and then we assign the addresses. Now all these functions of an assembler are grouped in two passes. So in the previous lecture we had seen that the design specification of an assembler, the first step was the statement of a problem, where we took a sample problem and we went through it, we worked with it, behaving like the assembler itself, like how the assembler would have converted that code to a machine language code. The same steps we have followed in the first step. In this lecture we will go through the other two steps that are required. One is to learn the data structure and the other is to learn the algorithms. So the data structures and algorithms used in every pass, in pass 1 and pass 2, we need to understand them. So the overview of pass 1 and the overview of pass 2 is what we will preliminarily study. So the pass 1 has a definite purpose. The purpose is to define symbols and literals. Now there are 5 steps that are essentially performed in the first pass. The first step is to determine the length of a machine instruction, and that step is called motget 1. The second one is to keep track of the location counter, so LC. The third one is to remember the values of the symbols until pass 2, that is known as STSTO, which stands for Symbols Table Store. The fourth step is to process some pseudo ops. The pseudo ops, there are different ones and we will go through them in the coming slides. They could be of EQU type, they could be DS type, TC type, etc. This step is known as POTGET1, POTGET1, and these 1 are because these steps are repeated in the case of both passes. So 1 means these steps are indicative of pass 1. So motget1 is the motget which is executed in pass 1. POTGET1 is the POTGET step which is executed in pass 1. Similarly, the last step is LITSTO, which stands for literature storage, right? So we have to store the literals, not literature, we have to store the literals. We have to remember the literals, that is performed in the step called LITSTO. So this is the overview of pass 1. Similarly, we have a pass 2 where the purpose is to generate the object program. So what does the pass 1 do? The pass 1 defines the symbols and literals, and it generates a intermediate form, which we had already learnt as intermediate representation or IR. The next part is the pass 2, which generates an object program. Now in order to generate an object program, there are 4 essential steps that the pass 2 will perform. It will look up the values of symbols, that is symbol table get or STGet. It will generate instructions in the step motget2 machine, like we had learned. Motget1 was to determine the length of machine instruction. Here motget2 in pass 2 will generate the instructions. Then we need to generate the data for pseudo ops like DS, DC, etc. and the literals. We need to generate data, and in the last step we need to process the pseudo ops using the instruction POTGET2, using the step POTGET2. So in pass 1 we had POTGET1 to process some pseudo ops. Similarly in pass 2 we also have a POTGET which is known as POTGET2, which is used to process the pseudo ops. So now we'll work through each of the passes. So for pass 1 we will go through the data structures required, and then we will go through the algorithms used in pass 1, and we will do the same thing for pass 2. So starting with pass 1, we have the specific data structures listed below. The first one, which is most crucial, is the input source program. So the source program which is provided as input to the assembler, it is obviously in the assembly language itself. So first data structure that we need for pass 1 is the input program. The second one is the location counter or the LC. The location counter or the LC will keep track of each instruction's location. This we already know from previous lectures. The new data structures are the coming ones. So first we have a table which is called the machine operation table, MOT. This table indicates the symbolic mnemonic for each instruction along with its length. So the machine operation table in pass 1 indicates the symbolic mnemonic for each instruction along with its length. So the symbolic mnemonic could be of type load, store, add, etc. right? And the length of the instruction. These two things are indicated by the machine operation table in pass 1. Next we have another table which is known as the pseudo operation table or POT. This table indicates that symbolic mnemonics and the action to be taken for each pseudo operation in pass 1. So there are two types of operations as we had already seen. The first one is a machine operation, second one is a pseudo operation. So the POT table or the pseudo operation table indicates the symbolic mnemonics and corresponding action for the pseudo operations, for the pseudo ops. There is another table we need which is known as the symbol table or ST. The symbol table stores each label and its corresponding value. So whatever labels we have defined, their corresponding value and the label itself, these are stored in the symbol table. Next we have another table called the literal table or LT. The LT stores each literal encountered and its corresponding location. So every literal mentions a particular corresponding location. The job of the LT table is to store the literal and its corresponding location. After all of these data structures, there is another data structure used which is a copy of the input, which will be used later by pass 2. So whatever source program we have given as an input, a copy is made which will be used by pass 2. This copy may be stored in secondary storage, or in some cases it happens that the original source is read for a second time by the assembler during pass 2. Right? So these are the data structures which are used by the assembler in pass 1. Next we will go through the algorithm of pass 1. Now the algorithm is given using this diagram. This may look like a very complicated diagram, but we will go through the steps one by one. So if you can understand each step, you can always remember this diagram logically, right? So let's start. Now the purpose again of pass 1 is to assign relative locations to each instruction and pseudo instruction, and the second purpose is to define the values for symbols in label fields, right? So this is the purpose of the algorithm. Initially what happens is there is an instruction LC which is set to 0. So initially the location counter is set to the location of the first instruction in the program, and the first instruction in the program is said to have a relative address location 0. Then there is a set of instructions, or there is an instruction which says read card. Here read card means read one instruction from the source or one instruction from the source program. So in these cases, in these books, whichever we are following, there are two terms which have been used. The term deck represents a program and the term card represents a specific instruction from that program. So read card means read a source statement from the program. So which source statement are we reading first? We are reading the source statement which is stored at location counter 0, which is pointed to location counter, right? Okay. So following we have the opcode field. So every instruction has an opcode field or operation code field. So the operation code field is examined. So it's written search the pseudo op table, right? Search the pseudo op table. So we have scanned the opcode. The opcode field has been examined. So if it is not a pseudo op, then the table of machine operation codes is searched. And if it is a pseudo op, then we move to the right hand side of this flowchart, right? If it is a pseudo op, then we move to the right hand side. If it is not a pseudo op, we move downwards, right? So if not a pseudo op, then the table of machine opcodes is searched to find a match for the source statement's opcode field. The matched MOT entry specifies the length of the instruction, right? So let's assume now on that we have not found a match in the pot get 1 table, we have found a match in the MOT get table, right? So the operand field is scanned. The operand field is scanned for presence of a literal. If found, the literal is entered in the literal table for later processing, right? So when we search the machine op table or the Mott-Get table and we find a match with the current instruction, we first take the length of the instruction in L and then we process any literal and enter it into the literal table. This step is known as LT store, LTSTO, right? So if found, it is saved. Now label field is also examined. After the literal is examined, the label field is also examined for the presence of a symbol. If found, the symbol is saved in the symbol table along with current value of location counter. So this is this step. Is there symbol in label field? Yes. Then assign the current value of location counter to the symbol. This step is known as STSTO or symbol table store, right? So these are the steps. So we began with reading a particular instruction. We searched in the pseudo op table. Assuming that you are not found in the pseudo op table, we move on to the machine op table. Assuming that we have found it in the machine op table, we save the length of the instruction in L. First we process any literals and enter the value in the literal table. Then we check if there is a symbol in the label field. If there is a symbol, we assign the value of LC to the symbol. If no, then we move ahead, right? Move ahead to what? The next step says the length of the instruction stored in L, right, is used to increment the location counter. A copy of the source instruction is saved for using in pass2. So write copy of card or write copy of the instruction on file for use by pass2. So after we are done working with the instruction, with the pseudo op instruction, we increment the location counter and we write a copy of the instruction for using in pass2, and then we move ahead to the next instruction, right? Since the location counter has been incremented, now we again read the instruction at the new address location. This is how the algorithm for pass1 works. Now in this assumption, we have only worked with the machine op codes. We have not worked with the pseudo op table. So pass1 is concerned with pseudo ops also. Now these pseudo ops that may define symbols or they may affect the location counter. That depends on the type of the pseudo op we are using. So if the opcode in this step, after reading the card, if the opcode is for a pseudo op, that means we are branching to this found part, then we check which pseudo op it is. Now there are different types or different categories of pseudo op, and the processing will depend on the category of the operation. So if the pseudo ops are using or drop, then the assembler will only save a copy for pass2. If the pseudo ops are using or drop, then the assembler will only save a copy for pass2 and move on, right? In other cases, in case the pseudo op is a EQ pseudo op, EQU pseudo op, then we have to define the symbol in the label field. For defining the symbol in the label field, we need to evaluate the expression in the operand field of the pseudo op. So EQU pseudo op has a expression in the operand field. First, that needs to be evaluated. That step is known as eval, EVAL. Next, after evaluation, we can define the symbol in the symbol table. We can define the symbol in the label field using the function ststore, STSTO, right? This is the case of the EQU pseudo op. Similarly, for the DS and DC pseudo ops, they affect both the location counter and the symbol definition, right? So the previous ones, they did not affect the location counter at all. Now DS and DC, these pseudo ops affect both the location counter and the definition of symbols. Now due to requirement of alignment conditions, the location counter has to be adjusted before defining the symbols, because DS and DC are both associated with defining values, right, which we have already studied. Now first, when we decide that the pseudo op is a DS or DC pseudo op, we adjust the location counter to proper alignment, and then we examine the operand field to determine the number of bytes required, right, and that is stored in the L. L is the length of data fields, right. So this is the processing for DS or DC. Now please see that DS and DC, when it is processed, we move ahead to the part where we check for a symbol in label field. Again, for EQU, we perform all the processes and we move ahead to the part where we write it to a card, right? There is another last one remaining, last pseudo op remaining, which is a end pseudo op. So when the end pseudo op is encountered, the pass 1 is terminated. When the end pseudo op is encountered, the pass 1 is terminated. What happens then? Before transferring control to pass 2, the locations are assigned to literals that are collected in pass 1. So whichever literals we have collected, whichever literals we have encountered during this pass 1, we are assigning locations to them before the whole thing is processed in the second pass. This is the algorithm of pass 1, right? We will meet next day to discuss the data structures and algorithms of pass 2.